Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this video, the full version is available on Patreon. I'll be uploading all my content there going forward.
Chapter 1 One Piece World. On an uninhabited island, a young man was sitting on the beach by the sea with a stupid expression on his face. His name is Liu Feng, and just 5 minutes ago, Liu Feng was still at home eating ice cream with the air conditioner blowing, chasing the latest episode of One Punch Man. He just fantasized about turning into Saitama-sensei and enjoying the feeling of invincibility with one punch. He doesn't know which master fulfilled his fantasy and sent him directly to his favorite world of One Piece. Comes with an invincible plug-in. With a thought, a transparent light curtain that only Liu Feng could see appeared in front of his eyes. One Punch Man System. Liu Feng. Male. 26 years old. The human body limiter has been untied, and now the host is the ceiling of this world's combat power. It is absolutely no problem to punch the 4 emperors and step on the 5 old stars. One Piece World invincible only. What is this? It's invincible at the beginning? It's just that the system is simple enough, and it's useless except as a manual. At this time, apart from ecstasy, there was also a trace of sadness in Liu Feng's heart. It's all delivered. Can't you send me to a better place? Liu Feng looked at the beach under his feet and really wanted to cry without tears. This is an uninhabited island, surrounded by the sea. He doesn't even know where he is now, and he doesn't even have a direction to leave here. Is that a ship? Suddenly, Liu Feng saw a dilapidated small sailboat staggering towards the island on the sea level in the distance. Liu Feng vaguely saw that there seemed to be a few people on the boat, so why not? There is a boat, and the guide also comes. Liu Feng felt that it took a long time before the boat finally landed. He had been waiting on the beach for a long time. As they got closer, Liu Feng looked at the several strong men who got off the boat, and he felt that they looked familiar from a distance just now. Now, Liu Feng finally saw the true colors of this group of people. It turned out to be the Blackbeard gang. Liu Feng was not surprised but delighted. It's just a good time to try the plug-in sent by the great god. Blackbeard is also considered the top power in this world, and he is completely qualified to be a test product. Blackbeard and the others approached the shore and got off the boat, and came straight to Liu Feng. They had already spotted the kid on the shore. Except for Blackbeard, the others didn't care about Liu Feng. What kind of threat would a brat pose to them? They were the Blackbeard pirates. Boy, who are you? Blackbeard asked, standing a few meters away and looking at Liu Feng. Blackbeard himself is a thoughtful man. He was able to lurk on Whitebeard's boat for so many years for a fruit. A young man living on a deserted island said that there was no problem, but he didn't believe it. Blackbeard looked at Liu Feng cautiously. His era had just begun, and he didn't want to capsize in the gutter. After Tiki looked around to confirm that Liu Feng was alone, he winked at his companions, and they surrounded Liu Feng in a fan shape. Seeing this, Liu Feng smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous, I don't mean anything malicious, I just want to take a boat and leave here." Liu Feng still has a few words to say. "Can you let me punch you again? If you say this, the people in front of you may violently attack him in an instant. The most important thing is to leave this deserted island by boat first." Hearing this, Blackbeard Tiki grinned and said, "Chi ha 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 ha, that's right, no problem." As he said that, Tiki walked towards Liu Feng slowly, and then suddenly violently, his clenched fist was wrapped in a circle of black light, and he hammered down on Liu Feng's head. He didn't believe what Liu Feng said. He would rather kill by mistake than let him go. He would never allow anyone to threaten his safety. Do it better. Seeing the black fist getting closer, Liu Feng seemed to be frozen, motionless. "It's so slow." Liu Feng murmured. Liu Feng, who is already the ceiling of the world's combat power, Blackbeard's punch has completely become a frame-by-frame PPT. Slow, it is too slow. What? Blackbeard frowned, feeling something was wrong immediately, but it was too late to stop, so he bit the bullet and continued to hammer at Liu Feng. Humph! If you're making a sneak attack, then don't blame me for being rude. Liu Feng smiled, and punched Blackbeard's fist with his backhand. Under the scorching sun and clear sky, a blinding black thunder flashed across the deserted island. Puff! Blackbeard Teach, Pawn! Poison Q and Lafitte, who were closer to Blackbeard, were affected by the black lightning just now, and disappeared together with Blackbeard. One punch, 3 kills. Where the 3 Blackbeards had stood, there was only a scorched black pit left in place. Liu Feng scratched his head and smacked his mouth, staring at the deep pit in front of him, feeling as if he had gone too far. Liu Feng really didn't expect Blackbeard to be so careless. Originally, he didn't want to kill Blackbeard and the others, he didn't want to spoil the original plot at all. But things are like this, there is no other way. After silently apologizing to the 3 Blackbeards in my heart, Liu Feng decided that it's better not to fight with others casually after he has not fully mastered the control power. In case there is a big ending with one punch. I suddenly want to try it. Shaking his head, Liu Feng quickly threw this crazy idea out of his mind. It's crazy, don't have such thoughts in the future, won't he just GG after the world is destroyed? At the seaside, Fan Oka and Badgers looked at Liu Feng after regaining consciousness, a bit unacceptable, where is their captain? Just standing there, the big Blackbeard is gone? Their captain was punched to death? It is estimated that no one will believe this matter, but as the 2 witnesses of the whole process, they have to believe it. The 2 stood there dumbfounded, at a loss. As Liu Feng approached them, Badgers and Van Oka shrank back in fear. At this moment, seeing Liu Feng walking towards them, the 2 couldn't help swallowing, and couldn't help taking a step back. Are you serious about taking a step back? Am I so scary? Liu Feng touched his face and couldn't help laughing. What are you afraid of? He doesn't eat people. Badgers and Van Oka felt the cold sea water under their feet, just like their mood at the moment, it was cool. Who are you? Badgers stared at Liu Feng and asked with a trembling voice. Hearing this, Liu Feng revealed a mouthful of neat white teeth and said. Me? A visitor from another world. Visitor from another world. Facing the vocabulary they heard for the first time in their lives, the 2 could not understand the meaning at all. Forget it, it's not important, let me ask you, what year is it now? What year? The 2 looked at each other, a little confused. Is there something wrong with this person? Liu Feng watched the 2 ignore him. Hey! The 2 blurted out, it's 1521 in the lunar calendar of the sea. 1521? Did the top war break out? On top of the war? I haven't heard of it. It didn't start, then do you know the Straw Hat Kid? I've seen it, the 2 nodded. That's passing Sky Island. Did Blackbeard catch Ace? Hearing the word Ace, the expressions of the 2 became panicked. It was only half a day since they handed Ace over to the Navy, and no one except the Navy knew about it. Could it be that this man was sent by the Navy to kill them? What is the Navy planning? It seems that Liu Feng is a member of the Navy. Van Oka smiled wryly, then knelt down on the soft sand as if resigned to his fate, waiting to be silenced. Even Blackbeard was blown away with a single punch, and he was even more of an opponent. This is destiny. Fan Oka sighed in his heart, and began to recall his life experience in his mind. Suddenly, Van Oka heard a pop in his ear and opened his eyes to look. Badgers jumped into the sea and swam to the depths, while Liu Feng stood aside and did not stop him. Liu Feng looked at the water spray brought by Badgers on the sea level and sighed, he is a ruthless person, maybe he wants to swim across the sea. Liu Feng, whose mind was still stuck in the thoughts of ordinary people, never thought that he, who was already invincible, could swim to the next island by himself, or even fly. Seeing that Liu Feng did not kill Badgers, Fan Ayaka couldn't help feeling a little regretful, knowing that he would have followed him. But it was too late to say anything now, because Lu Feng had already locked his eyes on him, and he couldn't even run away if he wanted to. Van Oka lowered his head, his one eye was full of regret. Well, do you know how to sail? Lu Feng asked in a low voice to Fan Ayaka who was kneeling on the ground. There is a boat, but he can't steer it, so a helmsman is needed. What do you mean? Fan Ayaka really can't understand Lu Feng. It's weird, this person is really weird, every step is beyond his expectation. Feeling helpless, Lu Feng could only repeat again, can you sail? Can you take me out of here on that boat? Fan Oka was taken aback when he heard the words, and his eyes lit up. This matter, a chance to survive? No one wants to die, and he is no exception. Immediately raised his head and responded quickly, I will. No problem. Great, let's set off now. Lu Feng said and pulled Fan Ayaka onto the broken and tattered boat docked on the shore. Sitting at the stern, Lu Feng shouted excitedly, let's go. Van Oka immediately drove the boat slowly away from the deserted island. After sailing for a while, Lu Feng finally understood why badgers didn't take this small boat when he escaped. There was no good place in the whole boat, and it might fall apart at any time. If it were him, if he had a choice, he would definitely not go to sea on this ship. Fan Oka hesitated for a long time in the boat, and finally mustered up the courage to ask Lu Feng, my lord? Are you from the navy? No. Lu Feng yawned and said, feeling a little sleepy for some reason, maybe because he was overworked? Van Orca cautiously asked again, then why did you kill my captain, Blackbeard? He was the one who sneaked up on me first, the guy who doesn't talk about martial arts, he deserves to die. Lu Feng said angrily. It was so. Van Oka murmured this is fate. Judging from whether Lu Feng let badgers go or not killed him, Fan Ayaka had half believed Lu Feng. Van Oka looked at the sea in front of him and said to himself, this is fate. Captain, you really have only yourself to blame for this. Chapter 2. Van Orca quickly came to terms with the fact that only Tich and Lafitte were dead, but he was alive, so it must be fate. The dead are already dead, so the living should live well, right? In order to avoid being buried in the sea, Van Oka concentrated on steering the dangerous ship under his feet. This is a great route, and if he is not careful, the ship will crash and people will die. If he thinks too much, he will die, but Lu Feng may not die. No, Lu Feng will definitely not die. It may not be an easy task to make Lu Feng happy. On the small boat, Lu Feng, who was sitting at the stern, felt the bumps of the boat and almost vomited. Is this the charm of the sea? Really dizzy? Lu Feng was also speechless in his heart. He was about to fall asleep, but he was so shaken that he almost vomited. Invincible and dizzy. This is unscientific. What happened to him? It seems that this can't be defined by science at all. You said that besides being able to punch the 4 emperors and step on the 5 old stars, what else can he do? What is he? He didn't know what else he could do. It would be more intuitive to digitize the body and give him some skills. Maybe the master has his own considerations, or the master likes this style. Lu Feng didn't dare to complain. After all, maybe some unknown boss who sent him may be watching him, so he can't offend him. He is invincible, but not brainless. How long will it take to reach the next island? Lu Feng asked Fan Ayaka who was at the helm. Soon, soon. Fan Ayaka turned around and showed Lu Feng a smile that he thought was kind, but in Lu Feng's eyes, this smile did not make him cry ugly. Cyclops laughed, so he could see where to go. I remember a long time ago that you said soon, soon, how long will it take? Lu Feng's tone was a little impatient. It's been almost a day with him here, not to mention the land, not even a bird. If it weren't for this guy's usefulness, Lu Feng would have kicked him off the boat long ago. Nothing. A few drops of cold sweat oozed from Van Oka's forehead, but he didn't dare to wipe it off. I forgot to record the fingerprints on Lafitte. Although he can sail, he doesn't know the way without recording the pointer. So, they are now wandering in the sea. Liu Feng also forgot to record the pointer for a while, and naively thought that Fan Oka was leading him to an island with humans. Fan Aoka swallowed his saliva, full of desire to survive, and said again, "It's really coming soon, please believe me." As he spoke, another smile that was uglier than crying appeared on his face. Seeing this, Liu Feng hurriedly asked him to turn his head away and not to face him. He was already seasick and nauseous, but after seeing Fan Aoka's smile, he really wanted to vomit. "Then you drive steadily, I'll squint for a while." "Yes, yes, yes," replied Van Okal. At the same time, he became anxious. He was worried that Liu Feng would punch him when he woke up and found that they were still floating in the sea. How to do? Just when Van Oka was at a loss, God opened a window for him. In the sky, a pirate ship appeared. Van Orka's only remaining one eye narrowed slightly, the corner of his mouth curled up slightly, and he said, "This is fate." On the other side, on the pirate ship. On the watchtower of the Hungry Wolf Pirates, the watchman shouted to a bearded man on the deck, "Captain, there is a small boat ahead, and there are only 2 people on board." On the deck, the bearded man grinned grinningly and said, "Get close to them, don't shoot them, and capture them alive. There is a shortage of handy men on board." This big man is the captain of the Hungry Wolf Pirates, Caesar Yasardini's. "No shelling." Van Oka showed a surprised expression. But this is exactly what Van Oka wanted, just like his catchphrase, "This is fate." It would be difficult if the pirate ship bombarded them. Fan Aoka watched the pirates in the distance approaching them at a desperate speed, the smile on his face became brighter, and he decided to give them a decent way to die for this group of pirates. Van Oka stabilized the boat, raised his love system Kunlu and aimed at the pirate ship in the distance. Bang, gunshot! Liu Feng woke up in an instant. When he opened his eyes, he saw Fan Aoka aiming his gun and asked, "What's going on?" After hearing Liu Feng's question, Fan Oka immediately put down his gun and turned around to reply, "My lord, there is a pirate ship in front of me, and I am sniping the pirates on board." "Pirate ship?" Liu Feng sat up slightly and looked at the sea in the distance. "You can hit it with such a big size? It's a few hundred meters away." Looking at the dot-sized people on the opposite pirate ship, Liu Feng was surprised. There is no -X mirror, and the machine sight hits people so far away, sharpshooter. Van Orka smiled and said nothing, and raised his hand to aim at the pirate ship. After a gunshot, Liu Feng quickly looked at the pirate ship. "It's useless to talk too much, let's talk about talent." Seeing the blood flower blooming from the bow, Liu Feng gave Fan Aoka a thumbs up. "Say nothing, NB." Liu Feng looked at the dangerous ship under his feet, then at the galleon in the distance, and said to him, "Get close to him and steal the ship." Van Oka, "Yes, my lord." Carrying Kunlu on his shoulders, Van Oka started rowing the boat by hand, advancing at full speed. In an instant, the ship of the Hungry Wolf Pirates was less than 200 meters away from them, and Van Oka could see the ferocious expressions on the faces of the pirates at the bow. Fan Aoka immediately raised Kunlu, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and then bang 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 burst of rapid fire, a few blood flowers rose from the bow of the ship in the distance, and several pirates fell to the ground with a bang. Seeing this scene, Caesar Asadinais was furious, staring at the man holding a long gun on the boat with bloodshot eyes, roaring in his mouth. "Full speed ahead! I'm going to kill that man alive!" The speed of the pirate ship increased a little again, but within a distance of less than 200 meters, it was like a road leading to hell, and people continued to die under Van Oka's gun. Caesar Yasadini stood on the deck and gritted his teeth, staring at the boat in the distance. Lu Feng was sitting at the stern of the boat watching Fan Oka's performance with a smile. When the distance is about 50 meters. A younger brother cried to Caesar Yasatinus, "Captain, we have already lost more than 20 brothers, and the casualties are a bit heavy. Fire! Sink em for me." At this time, the impatient Caesar Yasatinus had given up capturing Lu Feng and the others alive. The casualties of the crew were too great. After only advancing a distance of -meters, they killed or injured brothers. He also knew that the people on the boat were definitely not idle people. Although he really wanted to kill Van Oka alive, firing the cannon to sink the boat was the right choice. At this distance, one round of shelling can destroy the broken sailboat and the 2 people on board. Fire! After giving an order at will, a few shells whizzed through the air and blasted towards the boat. Van Oka looked at the shells coming through the sky, showing disdain. Raising his hand, a few bullets were fired, and the shells exploded in the air. Lu Feng, who was lying behind, watched a fireworks show for free. Then Van Oka continued to shoot the people on the boat calmly. 3 minutes later, the boat of the Hungry Wolf pirates was attached to the boat of Lu Feng and the others. The number of members on the pirate ship has dropped by more than half. The captain Caesar Yasatinus was glaring at Fan Oka below with his eyes spitting fire. "You boy who plays with guns, labor and capital will definitely chop you alive today." Fan Oka didn't look at Caesar Yasatinus at all, turned around with a smile and said to Lu Feng, "My lord, the boat is here, it's time to get on board." "Okay." Lu Feng responded and jumped onto the ship of the Hungry Wolf pirates, followed closely by Fan Oka. On the deck, a circle of pirates surrounded Lu Feng and the others, and all the knives, guns, sticks, axes, hooks and forks in their hands were aimed at them, which was really not friendly. "Kill them for me." Caesar Yasatinus' angry voice echoed on the deck. "Let me do it." Facing the simultaneous attack of dozens of pirates, Lu Feng stopped Fan Oka and said calmly, "Okay, my lord." Fan Oka put away Qian Lu with a smile, stood behind Lu Feng, and watched from the sidelines. Ordinary punch. Teacher Qiu's famous stunt emerged in his mind, and Lu Feng punched it out. As expected of a famous stunt, it only caused a little damage of billion. Fan Oka stared at the half-cut pirate ship that was punched by Lu Feng, and didn't know what to say. "The big boat that I got was gone." Fan Oka sighed helplessly. He really didn't have the courage to blame Lu Feng. Fortunately, their boat is still there, and it can continue to carry them for a period of time. Van Oka can only pray that the next island is not too far away or that another pirate ship will come to save them. He is true to the boat, not much confidence. Lu Feng scratched his head and looked at Fan Oka with some embarrassment. "Ah, this, he really just threw a normal punch. It must not be his problem, it's all due to the poor quality of the ship. Well, it must be like this, it's too rough." Facing Lu Feng, Fan Oka could only smile and let the matter go. This is a big boss, a real big boss, he can't afford to mess with him, and he wants to live a few more years. Seeing that the boat was about to sink, Lu Feng jumped back into their boat. "Slip away." On the ship slowly sinking into the sea, Van Oka walked towards Caesar Yasatinus, who was kneeling on the deck. Kicked him to the ground, pointed the gun at the temple and asked, "Where is the record pointer?" Trembling, Caesar Yasatinus took out a recording pointer from the inner pocket of his clothes and handed it to Van Oka, who was already terrified. "Can you spare my life? Please, I promise I will never be a pirate again." Van Oka looked contemptuously at the man kneeling on the ground begging for mercy, and said disdainfully, "Since you have chosen the path of being a pirate, you should be prepared to die in the sea." After a gunshot, everything returned to calm. Chapter 3. Although the ship is gone, the good news is that there is a record pointer. Half a day later, a floating city appeared in the sight of the two of them, and they arrived the capital of Seven Waters. "Old Fan. Go for me. Accelerate. Go forward at full speed. Lu kept shouting orders towards Fan Oka who was driving the boat. Lu Feng looked straight at the capital of seven waters in the sky. He was hungry and sleepy now, and his mind was full of meat and rice. There was no need for Lu Feng to say anything. Fan Oka was already advancing at full speed, and his eyes were shining brightly. He was more anxious than Lu Feng to get out of this small boat. Forget it, don't plan. Lu Feng looked at the capital of seven waters that was close at hand, and couldn't wait any longer, so he stopped Fan Oka who was rowing with both hands, grabbed his back collar, jumped on the boat, and flew into the sky. In a few breaths, it landed in the port of the capital of seven waters. Eat! Eat! Lu Feng put down the hand that was holding Fan Oka, and trotted directly to the town regardless of him who was still in a daze. Fan Oka looked at Lu Feng running away. This was an excellent opportunity to escape. But he was a little hesitant, and it was such a hesitation that made him miss the opportunity. Lu Feng went back and forth and stood in front of Fan Oka, saying, "What are you doing? Follow up quickly." Fan Oka was called because Lu Feng suddenly remembered that he had no money and didn't pay for meals, which didn't fit his status as a good young man in the new era. Fan Oka ran behind Lu Feng towards the town with a constipated expression on his face. He was extremely regretful, wishing to beat himself to death with the kind of regret. Just now he hesitated and ran away when he had a chance to get out of Lu Feng's clutches. Incredible! What's wrong with you? Are you uncomfortable? Lu Feng turned his head and glanced at Fan Oka's painful expression and asked. "I'm fine," said Fan Oka with a smile. "Tell you not to laugh, it's ugly. Do you have any money?" "Have." "That's fine, let's go. Let's cook." Inside a restaurant, the eyes of the guests were all focused on a man. This man was Lu Feng. The table was already full of plates, and Lu Feng was still eating wildly. Fan Oka sat next to Lu Feng with dull eyes, but he was either surprised by Lu Feng's appetite, or the money in his wallet was not enough to pay for the meal. He didn't dare to disturb Lu Feng, and spoiled his interest. "Don't give him a punch at that time, he can't stand it." "Boss! Another serving!" Lu Feng shouted without raising his head, focusing on cooking and not listening to anything outside the window. "That, my lord! Is something wrong?" "It's okay. You eat." Fan Oka held back the words. Lu Feng insisted on eating this meal for 4 hours. What is the concept of eating non-stop for 4 hours? After eating a meal for 100 people, Fan Oka looked at Lu Feng's flat stomach and really didn't know how to eat it. Lu Feng himself wondered, where did he have such a big appetite, and this transformation was also transformed inside him. If he eats like this, he guarantees that he will faint. Hiccup. "Old Fan, pay the bill." Seeing Fan Oka sitting still, Lu Feng turned his head and looked at him suspiciously. "What are you doing? Go check out, don't you say you have money?" The owner of the restaurant stood next to the two of them with a smile on his face. This is a big customer. He ate more than 200 million Baileys in one meal, which was enough to cover his turnover for several days. "Well, my lord doesn't have enough money." Fan Oka leaned close to Lu Feng's ear and said. "What?" Lu Feng exclaimed for a moment, then asked in a low voice, "Then how much do you have?" 1 million Baileys. "How far is it?" 1 million Baileys. What should I do?" "My lord, why don't we run away?" A man who killed Blackbeard with one punch, and a former sniper of the Blackbeard pirates actually wanted to eat the Overlord's meal because he couldn't afford it. However, the two of them really have no money. "I think it will work," Lu Feng agreed. Lu Feng sneaked a glance at the boss standing beside them. "Boss, don't blame me, I really don't have any money this time, I will make it up for you next time." The boss looked at the two of them muttering, the smile on his face gradually disappeared. These two don't have money, do they? Liu Feng glanced at the expression on the boss's face, then controlled his facial expression and said calmly, "Boss, give me another one." Hear the words. The boss rubbed his hands with a professional smile on his face and said, "Sir, please settle the meal payment first, and the meal will be here soon." "What do you mean? Do you think we can't pay?" Liu Feng yelled at the boss angrily. The boss remained unmoved with a smile on his face, so he almost said the truth. Seeing this, Liu Feng winked at Fan Ayaka, shouted "Run," and then the two ran away and rushed out the door. "Eat the overlord's meal! Stop them!" Hearing the anxious roar of the boss behind him, Liu Feng shouted without looking back, "Separate and run!" After leaving the restaurant, Liu Feng snatched a bowl fish, drove all the way, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Fan Oka ran wildly in the opposite direction, and was ecstatic in his heart, finally out of the sea of suffering. After looking at safety, Liu Feng jumped off Bulu and ran into a street. "I didn't expect that I would also eat overlord meal in my lifetime." Walking on the street, Liu Feng sighed and sighed, let alone, this experience was quite exciting. "Don't run!" A loud roar came from behind Liu Feng. Liu Feng immediately froze, and stood still on conditional reflex. He has run so far and can he be caught up? Then a little boy ran past him, followed by a big man. Liu Feng looked at the two figures running away, and relaxed. "Made, I thought someone called me, it scared me to death." Liu Feng continued to walk along the street, when suddenly a figure bumped into his arms. He took a closer look, and saw that little boy turned back just now, and the big man behind him caught up within a few steps. "Boy, I advise you not to meddle in your own business, and hand over that kid quickly." Facing the threat of the big man, Liu Feng looked helpless. "Which eye of yours saw that I was meddling in my own business? It was obviously the little boy who bumped into my arms by himself." Hearing this, the little boy hugged Liu Feng and looked at him pitifully and asked, "Brother, do you leave me alone? Okay, you two are still together. Come here." As he spoke, the big man rushed towards Liu Feng, reaching out to grab the little boy in his arms. Liu Feng couldn't help feeling anxious about the IQ of the big man. His eyes and ears were not working well. "Punch lightly." "Forget it, lightly finger." Puff. There was a sound of a sharp knife piercing into the flesh between the two of them. The big man looked at his chest in disbelief. A finger had completely sunk into his body. The big man stared wide-eyed, staring at Liu Feng, spitting out blood, and asked, "What kind of finger are you?" "Plugging fingers." Following Liu Feng's words, the big man fell to the ground. Seeing passers-by gathered around, Liu Feng picked up the little boy and hurried away, leaving the big man on the ground to be pointed at. It is definitely not a serious person to be pointed at after death. In a dark corner of an alley somewhere, Liu Feng asked the little boy in front of him, "What's your name? Why did that person chase you just now?" "Big brother, you are so strong. Can you teach me how to become stronger?" The little boy asked Liu Feng while looking at him with bright eyes. "You answer my question first. Can you promise me to teach me to become stronger first?" "Hey, I have a bad temper, let me treat you." "Stop scratching. Stop scratching. Hee hee, haha, stop scratching, I say. Liu Feng put the little boy in his arms on the ground and said, "I said earlier that I wouldn't have to suffer this crime, let's talk about it. My name is Petunia, that person just now was a slave trader." The boy lowered his head and said sadly, "Slaver. This world is not his original world, but there is a system of slavery in this world, and there is a species that should not exist, the Tianlong people." Petunia continued, "I am from the West Sea, and I was brought here by slave traders. I sneaked out of the hole in the ship while they were disembarking for supplies. Fortunately, I met you, otherwise I would be arrested again. Gone back. Seemingly thinking of something terrifying, Petunia's thin body began to tremble uncontrollably. Liu Feng looked at Penny, who was squatting on the ground and curled up together. His heart trembled pitifully, and he asked, "Why do you want to become stronger?" "I want revenge," Petunia said in a childish voice with anger. "Revenge?" Liu Feng became curious. "My parents were killed by pirates, and then..." As she spoke, Penny burst into tears. "Then, I wanted to go to sea to find a way to become stronger, but..." Petunia sobbed and said, "But when I first went to sea, I met slave traders and was arrested by them. I managed to escape, but there are many poor people like me who were locked in the cabin by them and couldn't escape. They are so pitiful, they don't have enough to eat every day, and they still get beaten. Big brother, can you save them?" Liu Feng did not refuse, and asked directly, "About how many slave traders are there, and where are they now?" Slave traders, in his eyes, are as evil species as Tianlong people. "I'll be damned." Liu Feng's eyes were full of killing, and Petunia couldn't help shrinking back in fright. "There should be more than 20 people. I don't know exactly how many people there are. Their boat is parked at the port." Penny looked at Liu Feng and said carefully, "It's fine if you don't meet it, since it happened, Liu Feng will take care of it. Let's go, let's save people." Liu Feng followed Petunia to the beach. Looking at the little girl leading the way ahead, Liu Feng had a new understanding of the world in his heart. Such a young child has experienced suffering that he shouldn't have to bear at his age. I really don't know how many people in this world have suffered so much. The law here is that the strong prey on the weak, and it is very difficult for the weak to survive. This is the world of One Piece. Chapter 4. Port. On a two-masted sailing boat, a group of burly, bare-chested men drink and eat meat, and hold banquets in broad daylight. Small life is really not poignant. Is this the ship? On the shore, Liu Feng asked Petunia, and after getting the confirmation of the response, he jumped and landed on the deck. The lively banquet on the deck was interrupted by Liu Feng's visit. There were about 30 people on the deck, and they all looked at Liu Feng stiffly. They really didn't expect that someone would disturb them. A greasy uncle with a beard on his face held a wine glass and asked, "Boy, who are you?" "My tender father." Hear the words. The bearded uncle couldn't hold back any more. He smashed the wine glass in his hand fiercely, and shouted angrily, "Chop him up." Having grown up so big, he has never been taken advantage of by others. He vowed to kill this brat who speaks out loud. People on the deck drew out their swords one after another, and rushed towards Liu Feng with a grinning grin. Liu Feng looked at these shrimp soldiers and crab generals with disdain. Really, it is not an exaggeration to say that he can get rid of these garbage with one breath. But you can't insult people like that. Liu Feng decided to greet them with his fists. Seriously, one, ordinary, one, light punch. Bang bang bang, after a bang. There was a layer of smoke on the deck, and the number 30 people lay on the ground with broken arms and legs, howling. Liu Feng looked at the crowd on the ground and felt that the force was just right. No one died and it made people lose their ability to move. Nice. The bearded uncle looked horrified, and asked Liu Feng tremblingly, "Who the hell are you?" "I told you about my tender father." Liu Feng looked at him with a light smile, "A bastard who didn't take advantage of anything." "You're kidding me. Who are you? Do you know who we are? You are dead. If you kneel down and apologize to me now, I will forgive you." Liu Feng didn't know why this uncle was saying a bunch of strange things for no reason. Could he really not see the situation clearly? He beat all the people away by himself. How could this uncle have the courage to threaten him? The bearded uncle looked at Liu Feng arrogantly, his eyes full of complacency. "Then who is behind you?" "Behind me is the iron-handed slave catcher." "Be afraid, kid." "Ha ha 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 ha. Why are you laughing?" Liu Feng didn't care about the bearded uncle's anger, and laughed loudly as usual. It was really funny. A slave catcher group that he had never heard of in the original book was probably a little-known little character. Thinking of this, Liu Feng couldn't help but asked again, is the iron-handed slave catcher behind you famous? Is there someone more powerful behind him? What do you mean? The bearded uncle was taken aback by Liu Feng's question. Everyone in this sea area knows the fierce name of the Iron Hand slave catching squad. With the Joker backed by the underground world, anyone who sees him will give him 3 points of face. Not to mention the Joker, it is Master Iron Hand, the captain of the Iron Hand slave hunting group. He himself is a devil fruit capable user, and the bounty has reached 7,000 million Baileys. His strength is terrifying. It is existence of the top rank. Are you a newcomer who has just entered the Great Route? The bearded uncle suddenly realized that only newcomers had never heard of the name of the Iron Hand slave catchers. Only in this way could they reasonably explain why Liu Feng was not afraid at all when he heard about the Iron Hand slave catchers. Boy, I think you are quite capable. I can recommend you to Lord Iron Hand, and let you join Lord Iron Hand's slave hunting group. How about it? This is a rare opportunity, not everyone is so lucky. The bearded uncle looked at Liu Feng with an appreciative smile. Recently, Mr. Iron Hand is recruiting subordinates. This young man is so strong. As his recommender, he is also a great achievement. Looking at the gaze in the uncle's eyes was like looking at his own people. Liu Feng was speechless for a while. Did he say he agreed, just looking at him like this? The expression on this uncle's face has been changing since the beginning, and he even said to himself that he didn't care what Liu Feng thought, as if he was a little seriously ill. Forget it, let's get rid of you quickly and give me a punch. The bearded uncle saw that he was going to be serious, fixed his eyes on Liu Feng who was punching him, and shouted in horror. Hey! Wait! You can't kill me! Kill me, Lord Iron Hand won't let you go! After the sound of boom, all the traces of the beard just disappeared. When the dust settled, Liu Feng clapped his hands and said, it's done. Call it a day. Oops! Almost forgot. Liu Feng, who had just jumped off the boat, turned around and returned to the boat again. He almost forgot his business. This time, he didn't come to fight monsters to upgrade, he came to save people. Go back and must order brain supplements many times. Some sea area of the Great Sea Route. On the deck of a huge 3-masted sailing ship, a man with a steel arm is listening to the report of his subordinates with his eyes closed. A slave ship under our command was wiped out in the capital of 7 waters, and the slaves were also let go. After listening, the man sat there thinking for a while, opened his closed eyes, and a cruel look flashed in his eyes, and then asked unhurriedly, do you know who did it? This is a photo that was sent, there is no information about this person at present, please take a look at it. The man squeezed the photo of Liu Feng with iron hands, a cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Ha ha ha, interesting, have I been silent for too long, is there really any bug in the sea that dares to challenge my majesty? Turn around. Go to the capital of 7 waters. I want this kid to die. Yes. The younger brother responded with a roll of his Adam's apple and hurried away. Their boss, Carrie Stephen, nicknamed Iron Hand, was not only terrifying in strength, but also extremely cruel in character. He had been with the boss for so many years, and he knew that the boss was on the verge of rage just now. If he runs too slowly, maybe he will become a tool for the boss to vent his anger. He was hammered into a pulp on the spot. It is not an exaggeration. Before the boat, there were several younger brothers who had no vision. Tool of. Boom. 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 The younger brother heard a few loud noises behind him and ran away quickly. This sound was the sound of the Iron Hand hammering the mast of the ship. No one gave him the hammer, and he usually vented his anger in this way. Fortunately, there is an Iron Hand, replaced by a flesh and blood body, ordinary people can't hammer the mast. City of Seven Waters. Penny stared at the ground a little disappointed, and asked weakly. Big brother, why can't you accept me as a disciple? Liu Feng said helplessly, my strength is all given by plug-ins. I don't know how to become stronger. How do you ask me to teach you? It's not that I don't want to, it's that I really don't know how to. He did know the method of teacher Saitama becoming stronger, but he basically just listened to it. Teaching Petunia would be completely misleading. Then can you let the cheater give me a little bit of strength too, without you being so strong? It's enough to let me get revenge so strong. Looking at Penny's shining eyes, Liu Feng really couldn't bear to hit her. What a silly child. Get stronger. Get stronger. You can join the navy. It's hard to say who has the strongest strength in One Piece. If you want to ask who has the most complete strength system, it must be the navy. Not only does it have a complete training system, but also a powerful instructor like Zifa, as long as you have the determination to become stronger. The navy is definitely the best choice. Although he doesn't like the style of the navy and the world government, but for Petunia, he is willing to submit to the navy team. To put it bluntly, he is also a little selfish. He just wants to follow the example of old man Huang Yuan, put him in the navy for retirement, and live around. He is invincible, so what is the pursuit? To overthrow the world government? If he did all the work, what would the revolutionary army do? He doesn't care about his reputation either, so it's better to leave it too long to keep his reputation in history. Penny, do I know where I can make you stronger? Where? Navy. Navy. That's right. It's the navy, let's go, let's go. Liu Feng took Petunia's little hand and disappeared on the streets of the capital of Seven Waters. Chapter 5. Liu Feng and Petunia stood at the entrance of the sea train station, their faces dull. Liu Feng originally wanted to take Petunia to the next island by sea train, to the naval base, but he forgot that neither of them had any money, so they could only stand at the door and watch helplessly. Departure on the sea train. What should we do now? Petunia asked, tugging at Liu Feng's sleeve. Liu Feng rolled his eyes and thought, how do I know what to do? Two penniless people, no matter where they are, they can't move an inch, alas. If only Fan Oka was still there, he still has 100 won Bailey, I would have asked for the money if I knew it earlier, and now I can't find him. At the same time, Van Oka sneezed in a merchant ship on the sea, a little strange, why do I have a bad feeling? Let's go. Liu Feng helplessly dragged Penny's little hand and walked towards the city center. All he could think of now was to find a job and earn some money so that he could buy 2 train tickets and leave here. Suddenly, Liu Feng thought of teacher Qiu's hard life, and couldn't help expressing emotion. Oh! Sure enough, the strong are all poor. What does poor B mean? The way we are now is called poor B. Oh! Where are we going now, big brother? Work to earn a living. What do you mean by part-time job? What does it mean? 3 days later. Liu Feng held a few 1,000 denomination Baileys in his hand and shed tears. He can earn Baileys a day, and Baileys for a bus ticket. Throwing up, it's either hard work or service work serving tea and pouring water. Alas, if I say too much, I will cry. In fact, I can only blame Liu Feng himself. His thinking is still stuck in the thought of being a social animal, and he doesn't even think about committing crimes or robbing pirates. Otherwise, money, is that still a problem? Liu Feng shuttled through the port, hoping to find a good job today and earn more Baileys. Suddenly, the sound of orderly footsteps came from outside the port, which attracted Liu Feng's attention. Liu Feng hid in the crowd and stopped to watch with everyone, and found that a team of Marines was walking towards the port. Wearing a lavender-striped suit, a dark blue shirt, a tie, a punk hair, and a mustache, isn't this Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel? In the crowd, Liu Feng saw the leading admiral muttering secretly in his heart, but did not attract the attention of others. Why is Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel here? Although Liu Feng is curious about what the Navy is doing in the capital of Seven Waters, those are not important. The most important thing is that this is a godsend opportunity for him. As long as he can get on the Navy's ship, he can join the Navy and leave here. You don't have to work on the island anymore. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel. Wait a minute. The Flying Squirrel, the leader of the Navy team, heard someone calling his name in the crowd, so he stopped and looked towards the place where the sound came from. Liu Feng stood in the crowd and kept waving his arms, attracting the eyes of the flying squirrels. Naturally, the flying squirrel spotted Liu Feng, who was acting strangely in the crowd at a glance. Liu Feng pushed through the crowd and ran in front of Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, staring straight at Flying Squirrel and said, "I want to join the Navy." "Okay." A passerby suddenly appeared in the crowd and came up to the Vice Admiral, who was about to join the Navy. No one would agree, and the Flying Squirrel was no exception. If the hawks in the Navy were here, they could directly arrest Liu Feng for his suspicious behavior. The Flying Squirrel is quite good-tempered and did not do any excessive behavior. After examining Liu Feng, he said flatly, "If you want to join the Navy, go to the naval base to sign up." After finishing speaking, he bypassed Liu Feng and continued on. If he could go to the naval base, wouldn't Liu Feng be forced to stop people like this? If he misses this opportunity, how long will he have to work? Liu Feng can afford to wait, but Petunia can't. The money he earns every day is just enough for the two of them to spend. Money to buy 2 tickets is really far away. Liu Feng stopped in front of the Flying Squirrel again, and begged, "Please let me join the Navy. If it doesn't work, you can give me a ride and send me to an island with a naval base." The Flying Squirrel looked at Liu Feng's face with sincerity, and was about to agree to give him a ride, when suddenly a bullet came from nowhere and shot at Liu Feng. When the Flying Squirrel drew his knife and deflected the bullet. He is a dignified Lieutenant General of the Navy headquarters. If someone is shot and wounded in front of him, he doesn't have to mess around. He just goes home and farms. "Who?" the Flying Squirrel asked sharply, and at the same time kept scanning the surrounding crowd. The onlookers who were eating melons had already become confused because of the gunshot, and fled in all directions. For a while, the Flying Squirrel couldn't find out who fired the shot. Liu Feng was still staring at the Flying Squirrel in a daze, but in fact he was already furious in his heart. "Who is it? They want to kill me." In an instant, the crowd of onlookers dispersed, leaving nothing but a group of vicious-looking guys left on the port. In the lead, a man with a steel arm was staring at Liu Feng. Liu Feng had already stood on the same front with the Navy. The two sides confronted each other for a while, but no one spoke. But Liu Feng probably knew that he was the one who was attacked by the group on the opposite side. Engage in a sneak attack, no. 13 face. The Flying Squirrel looked at the headed man opposite with serious eyes, apparently recognizing who he was, and raised his saber in an attacking gesture. "Hello, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel." The man greeted the Flying Squirrel with a cruel smile, then turned to Liu Feng and said, "You are the guy who killed Pu." "Who? Who? I didn't, it wasn't me. I warn you not to slander me." Liu Feng didn't realize who he was talking about for a while, and wondered when he killed a guy named Pu, he didn't know him at all. "Okay? Do you dare to do it or not to admit it?" Iron Hand let out an angry roar. 3 days ago, at this port, someone saw you kill him with his own eyes. 3 days ago. After being reminded, Liu Feng knew who he was talking about. 3 days ago, he did kill a human trafficker. It turned out that the guy was called Pu. He still called him bearded in his heart. He felt that this nickname was suitable for him. You look at the sea with white beards, black beards, and tea beards, and it would be great to add another beard. "You are talking about him, I did it, you are the Iron Hand," he said, are you going to avenge him? Ti Xiao stared at Liu Feng with fiery eyes, and it seemed that the anger in his heart was about to burst. You know he belongs to me, yet you still dare to do it, kid, how courageous! Death to me! The iron hand turned into a whirlwind and rushed towards Liu Feng. Between Liu Feng and Tai Xiao, there was a sound of gold and iron clashing. It turned out that the flying squirrel stopped Tai Xiao with a knife. Shooting and hurting people in front of the Vice Admiral of the headquarters, you don't think much of me, Iron Hand. Ha ha ha, Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel still upholds the heart of justice as always. Ti Xiao stared fiercely at the eyes of the flying squirrel and said, then let's solve it with you. The Iron Hand directly activated the ability of the Devil Fruit, transformed into a werewolf, and fought with the flying squirrel, and the sound of dang dang kept ringing between the two. I, the flying squirrel, bet on the reputation of the Vice Admiral, and I will definitely arrest you and put you in jail. The flying squirrel roared angrily, and launched a storm-like offensive. Liu Feng saw countless sword shadows slashing at the Iron Hand, and he was so suppressed that he had no strength to fight back. Originally, Liu Feng wanted to help, but the two of them were stuck together, and it was really difficult for him to strike. It would be bad if he punched the flying squirrel and hurt the flying squirrel. He was still counting on the flying squirrel to take him into the navy. Suddenly, there was a sudden change in the field, a wolf howled from the mouth of Tai Xiao, and then a smear of blood flashed across the chest of the flying squirrel. Liu Feng was shocked. The dignified Lieutenant General of the Navy headquarters was injured by an unknown passerby. He's numb. Is this Iron Hand some kind of hidden figure? Seeing that the flying squirrel was at a disadvantage, Liu Feng became anxious. This is his guide to enter the Navy. Nothing will happen, so he yelled, Vice General Flying Squirrel. I'll help you. Then rushed into the battlefield. Chapter 6. Eat my punch. Liu Feng saw the opportunity, and rushed forward the moment the two separated. Ti Xiao didn't know how terrifying Liu Feng's punch was, and he stood there stupidly wanting to fight Liu Feng. However, the dangerous instinct brought to him by the ability of the animal-type devil fruit saved his life. Just when the two punches were about to collide, the Iron Hand turned sideways and escaped the catastrophe, but the price he paid was that the other fist was intact. His arm was lost by Liu Feng's punch. Tai Xiao looked at his missing right arm, and felt grateful that he had recovered his life. Just now, when he was about to touch Liu Feng's fist, there was a voice in his ear telling him that he would die if he touched it. This dangerous instinct had saved him many times, so he acted according to the voice in his ear without hesitation. Fortunately, he pulled back his strength in time and dodged the punch, but he didn't completely dodge it. His right arm was gone. Fortunately, his life was still alive. Ti Xiao stared fearfully at Liu Feng who was standing not far from him, observing his movements. As soon as Liu Feng showed signs of attacking, he was ready to flee. Knowing that you can't beat him, but still fighting hard, that's a reckless man, so reckless men generally don't live long. After a few seconds of confrontation between Tai Xiao and Liu Feng, he asked in a deep voice. Who the hell are you? What is your purpose? Liu Feng was speechless. He finally understood, it's not that the family doesn't enter the house, this Iron Hand and the bearded man are the same, except that they like to ask people who they are and they don't ask anything else. The next step should be to mention people link up. As predicted. Tai Xiao continued, I said why the flying squirrel appeared here, it turned out to be premeditated, this is the order of the world government. I didn't expect that we donated so many slaves to the Tianlong people every year, and it would end like this. Ha ha ha, Joker will avenge me. Iron Hand glanced at the navy that surrounded them, and then at his broken right hand. Tai Xiao knew that he would not be able to escape today, so he rushed to the wounded flying squirrel behind Liu Feng, apparently wanting to take advantage of his illness to kill him, and to replace him when he died. However, Tai Xiao was too naive. With Liu Feng here, his plan was doomed to fail. Iron Hand just activated his ability while running and transformed into a half-orc, before he got close to the flying squirrel. Lu Feng appeared in front of him, as if he was slapping a mosquito, and with a PG, he slapped his Iron Hand on the ground, the kind that he couldn't even pull the buckle off. Lu Feng really didn't expect that this Iron Hand is quite bloody, like a man, compared with the style of the bearded man before he died, the Iron Hand is worthy of being the boss. After finishing the Iron Hand, Lu Feng quickly turned around and cared about the flying squirrel. Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, are you all right? The flying squirrel looked at Lu Feng meaningfully, stood up with the support of the sea soldiers, looked directly at Lu Feng and asked, "Who are you, and what is the purpose of joining the navy?" Here we go again, who can resist this? Lu Feng was so worried that if he was a person, he asked who he was. His name, Lu Feng. Sex, male. Age, 26 years old. Occupation, worker. Lu Feng really wanted to get a sign and write all the information on it and hang it around his neck. He really didn't lie. Even if he told about his origin, no one would believe it. Lu Feng sighed and said helplessly, "My name is Lu Feng. I want to join the navy because I want to make a living, and because of my sister. I don't want him to wander around with me anymore." Lu Feng's younger sister is Petunia. He only found out that Petunia was a girl later on. In fact, he should have thought of it a long time ago. There is no boy named Petunia. Lu Feng. The flying squirrel whispered the name, but couldn't find any information about the name in his mind. After thinking about it, the flying squirrel decided that the name Lu Feng must not be his real name. Then the flying squirrel asked Lu Feng, "What's your sister's name, and where is she?" He tried to find some clues from Lu Feng's younger sister, to see if he could find out Lu Feng's true identity. But the flying squirrel really thought too much. Lu Feng's name was real, and what he said was not adulterated at all. The flying squirrel was destined to be disappointed. "Wait a minute, you wait for me here for a while, I will bring my sister." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hurriedly left the port and went back to find Petunia. When Lu Feng returned to the port with the panting Petunia, the navy at the port had long since disappeared. Just when Lu Feng thought that the flying squirrel and the others had left, and cursed the flying squirrel as not trustworthy, the flying squirrel took a few sailors appeared behind them. "This is your sister." Hearing the familiar voice behind him, Lu Feng looked back in surprise. It was the flying squirrel. "You didn't leave." "There was no medicine on board, so I went to the city to bandage the wound." Lu Feng was overjoyed, and it was good if he didn't leave. It turned out that he was wrong to blame the flying squirrel. He was still scolding the flying squirrel in his heart. This wave is his villain. "This is my sister, her name is Penny." "Petunia, this is Lieutenant General Flying Squirrel, call someone quickly." Petunia looked at the flying squirrel and said timidly, "Hello, Vice Admiral Flying Squirrel." The flying squirrel made a nasal sound, and frantically searched for information about Petunia again in his mind, but as time went by, the flying squirrel did not find any useful information, and the wrinkles between his brows became tighter and tighter. I hurriedly hid in Lu Feng's arms. Seeing this, Lu Feng asked aloud, "Is it all right?" "No, I can promise to give you a ride. As for joining the navy, it will be decided by the Marshal of the Warring States period when he is in the headquarters." Flying Squirrel thought about it and decided to bring Lu Feng to the headquarters and let the Marshal have a look. It would be a blessing for such a strong man to join the navy. "Go, go." The Flying Squirrel took Lu Feng, Petunia, and a group of sailors aboard the warship, and set off for the headquarters of the Navy Marin Fando. 3 days later. Navy Headquarters. Outside Marshal Warring States office, Lu Feng and Petunia leaned against the wall in a daze. Inside, the Flying Squirrel was reporting to Marshal Warring States. The Flying Squirrel opened the door and walked out of the room. The eyes of the two people outside the door focused on the Flying Squirrel. Marshal let you in. Okay. Liu Feng came back to his senses and replied. As soon as I opened the door and entered the room, I saw a braid, a pair of frog glasses, and a seagull hat that must symbolize the navy on the desk, and a white goat eating white paper next to it. Liu Feng stared straight at Zhang Guo with excitement. The old man in front of him was his favorite character in One Piece, Buddha Zhang Guo. Liu Feng doesn't like the person of warring states, but likes his fruit, which is the fruit of animal, human fruit, phantom beast, and Buddha form. This fruit Liu Feng always thinks is the most perfect devil fruit in One Piece. Become a huge golden Buddha, send out shock waves to cause damage, and its real effect is to let the eater get the power, wisdom, and spirit like the Buddha, combining a huge body like a Buddha with a smart mind and perfect skills, so that he can become the ultimate person with both mental and physical skills. This fruit can not only make people smarter, but also transform. It is the most perfect devil fruit in his mind. Penny's full name is Penny Silva, a native of the West Sea. Because her parents were killed by pirates, she went out to sea to try to find the gang of pirates who killed her. After disappearing for a while, she appeared in the capital of Seven Waters, and there was another one beside her. The man who claims to be your brother. Zhang Guo glanced at Liu Feng, and then read out Petunia's information. After finishing speaking, he looked at Liu Feng again and continued. Liu Feng, male, age unknown, first appeared in the capital of Seven Waters, together with Fan Oka of the Blackbeard Pirates, and then destroyed a slave hunting group at the port that day. 3 days ago in the capital of Seven Waters, he showed the strength to kill the Iron Hand with ease. Liu Feng, who are you? Why can't I find out your previous information? Zhang Guo stared at Liu Feng and asked. It's numb, could it be that the name Liu Feng doesn't sound like a person's name? Liu Feng immediately spread his hands and said helplessly, my real name is Liu Feng. As for the origin, he has already thought about the explanation. I have lived on an isolated island since I was a child. A few days ago, I was fishing by the sea and accidentally got caught in the ocean current. When I woke up, I found myself in that deserted island. On the island, believe it or not. After listening to Liu Feng's explanation, Zhang Guo immediately died. There is no need for Liu Feng to continue to say that he knows that Liu Feng should come from a closed country and has never seen the outside world. Then what's going on with you and the man with black beard? Zhang Guo asked again. Oh. This. Liu Feng explained, I happened to meet them on the desert island, and then the Blackbeard you mentioned attacked me directly, trying to kill me, so I fought back and killed him. By the way, I also killed 2 other people, and then, only Van Oka remained, and I left the desert island with him. It's that simple. If you don't believe me, there's nothing you can do. Do you have anything else to ask? Zhang Guo sat on the chair with his eyes wide open, his jaw almost fell to the ground. He was really shocked. What did you say? Blackbeard is dead. Warring States really can't believe that Blackbeard died like this. He knows Tikai's strength. Although he is not at the top level, he is more than a little bit stronger than Iron Hand. He really doesn't believe that Liu Feng can really kill Blackbeard. Could not help but ask again. Are you sure it's Blackbeard? Why don't you ask Van Oka? Warring States calmed down and said after returning to normal, I will investigate this matter. As for your joining the navy, I will consider it. You should stay here and rest for a few days. 2 days later, Warring States summoned Liu Feng and Petunia again. Seeing Liu Feng and Petunia coming in, Zhang Guo put down the document in his hand, and handed it to the goat next to him to eat. The information he received can indeed prove that Blackbeard is dead, so it can prove that what Liu Feng said should be true. There should be no problem in agreeing to him joining the navy. It just happens that there will be some unrest recently. Suspicious people are still worth wooing. After careful consideration, Warring States agreed to approve Liu Feng and Petunia's joining the navy. I have approved your joining the navy. However, there will be major events happening in the Navy recently. Liu Feng, please wait for a while for your arrangement. No problem. Liu Feng said happily. There is food, drink, and a place to live here. He is already very satisfied. He wishes he could live here and do nothing for the rest of his life. I have arranged for someone to take you to a new residence. Naturally, the Warring States period would not treat Liu Feng as a leader and let him start from the bottom, but listening to Liu Feng's meaning, he did not have a strong sense of belonging to the Navy. So he had to find a way to give him a sense of belonging to the Navy. With such a strong strength, he needs to be well recruited and firmly tied to the Navy ship. At such a young age, his strength is already unfathomable. Maybe, Liu Feng can become a general in the future. Liu Feng and Petunia followed a major to their new residence, which was a small building where they lived alone. Liu Feng couldn't help but praise Zhang Guo for being so generous. Penny, we will live here from now on. Okay. Inside the room, the two had happy smiles on their faces. Liu Feng is happy that he doesn't have to work anymore, and it's over after just messing around every day. Penny was happy, she could finally become stronger. Chapter 7. Inside the Navy mess. Liu Feng burped. It would be better if he ignored the mountain of empty plates in front of him. The surrounding Navy were looking at Liu Feng one by one, feeling that such a monster appeared in the Navy again. It was so delicious. Petunia, are you full? Petunia, who was sitting opposite, poked her head out from under the pile of plates and said, I'm full. Go, withdraw. Liu Feng doesn't know what's going on, his appetite has become surprisingly large, like a bottomless pit, but fortunately, this is not always the case, at least one meal can last for a week without having to eat again. Many. In fact, these foods have turned into energy to enhance Liu Feng's strength, but he doesn't know it. He is only invincible in this world now, but it does not mean that he is also invincible in the universe. Liu Feng, Marshal of the Warring States period is looking for you. A colonel ran over to catch up with Liu Feng from a distance and informed him. Okay, I see, I'll go now. After Liu Feng replied, he told Petunia, you go back by yourself first, I'll go back once I go there. Penny obediently responded. After watching Penny disappear at the end of the street, Liu Feng turned and walked towards Zhang Guo's office. Dong dong dong. Come in. Marshal, are you looking for me? When Liu Feng came in, he found that Carp was also here. After coming to the headquarters for so long, this was the first time Liu Feng saw Carp. This is the kid who killed Blackbeard? It looks very ordinary. Carp ate the senbei while looking at Liu Feng, and Liu Feng saw a strong suspicion in his eyes. Want to try? Liu Feng challenged Carp. Ha ha ha, come on, let this old man test your capabilities. Carp said and stood up. Seeing this, Liu Feng showed a dignified look, but he was laughing in his heart. You old man, I'm afraid you don't know how hard my iron fist is, and I'll make you cry after a while. Okay, sit down. Zhang Guo interrupted the tense atmosphere between the two, and said to Liu Feng, sit down, I have something to tell you. Ha ha ha, I won't bother you to talk about business, I'll go first. Carp took advantage of the situation and said haha, walked away with 2 packs of senbei, and left Sengoku's office. Liu Feng looked at Carp's back and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He really wanted to make Carp cry, but it's a pity. Marshal, what do you want from me? After feeding the document in his hand to the goat, Sengoku said, in 3 days, we will execute Whitebeard's second team against Fire Fist Ace. Hey! Liu Feng froze for a moment. It's because during this period of time that people are living so freely, they don't have to worry about eating and drinking, and they have nothing else to do except play every day. Not to mention the Warring States period, Liu Feng even forgot about going to war. Warring States rolled his eyes and Liu Feng continued, Whitebeard will definitely come to rescue, so I want you to participate in this war. Is there any problem? Warring states had no idea how strong Liu Feng was. Coincidentally, we can take this opportunity to find out Liu Feng's strength and increase his popularity by the way. No problem, I can. Liu Feng responded directly. This kind of big scene, of course, has to participate. But to be honest, when Liu Feng watched the anime, he still liked the character of Ace. When Ace died, he still fantasized about participating in the top war and saving Ace. However, now that he has joined the Navy camp, it is impossible to be friends with Ace. But Liu Feng started to get tangled up again. It was a childhood dream to keep Ace alive. Should he save him or not? Afterwards, Liu Feng began to recall that according to the development of the plot, Ace would be rescued, but he would still be killed by the Red Dog in the end. Even if Ace is rescued in the end, there is no guarantee that Ace will not be killed by Akainu, so this is an endless loop with no solution. However, even though he is in the Navy now, it doesn't mean that he will be in the Navy in the future. Let's play by ear and help if you can. Liu Feng still has no sense of belonging to the Navy. The world's largest organization is indeed the dog of the Tianlong people, which is really hard to like. A corrupt world government with a dark navy inside. Forget it, I'll just beat up the workers. If I can work for a day, it's a day. I'd better leave it to the Revolutionary Army to save the world. Thinking of this, I have to mention the biggest undercover leader in the Navy, Huang Yuan. Although Liu Feng didn't know whether Huang Yuan was an undercover agent of the Revolutionary Army, he already agreed in his heart. Okay, it's all right. If there is any change, I will inform you again. Let's go. Zhang Guo nodded to Liu Feng in satisfaction. Yes, Marshal. Liu Feng paid a military salute to Zhang Guo, then left and returned to his residence. On the road, Liu Feng also met Huang Yuan, and the two exchanged a few words. General Huang Yuan, why are you going? Oh, it's Liu Feng. Warring States asked me to go to a meeting. That's it, then you are busy first, and I will find you for tea later. It is good. On the third day after coming to the headquarters, Liu Feng got in touch with Huang Yuan. On that day, Liu Feng went to the Zhangguo office to ask if Penny could enter the recruit training camp. It happened that Huang Yuan was also in the Zhangguo office, and Huang Yuan Ape is also the chief instructor of the boot camp. After hearing that Liu Feng was the one who killed Blackbeard, he immediately beamed with joy, not knowing what Blackbeard did to him. Later, it was even more direct to ask Penny to join a class, and she could report to the recruit training camp next week, and Liu Feng became acquainted with Huang Yuan after going back and forth. This old man Huang Yuan really has a temper with Liu Feng. The two of them have similar personalities, and they can talk together. Anyway, Liu Feng will go to Huang Yuan to drink tea if nothing happens. It is worth mentioning that the tea specially provided by the general is much better than the one sold outside. Liu Feng has also learned a lot from Huang Yuan in the past few days. For example, what he is best at now is how to catch fish during working hours. If only Akainu could be a neutral party like Kizaru, how much trouble would it save? Liu Feng felt the difference between the two in his heart. Back to the residence. After dismissing Petunia, Liu Feng lay on the bed thinking about how to catch fish and not be discovered by the Warring States. No, think too far. There is still so long. 3 days left. After thinking about it, Liu Feng fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 8. 3 days are fleeting. There are still 18 hours left before the execution of Ace, and naval elites from all over the world have already gathered in the headquarters. Seeing that the time was approaching, Liu Feng thought about filling his stomach so that he could work well then. When he came to the Navy canteen, he was dumbfounded by a sign outside the door. Liu Feng and dogs are not allowed inside. What does that mean? Is it insulting me or is it prejudice against dogs? Isn't he just able to eat some? What's the matter? What's wrong with being able to eat? Liu Feng picked up the sign at the door and wanted to go in to find someone to make a theory. Suddenly, someone stopped Liu Feng. Hey! Liu Feng, the marshal is looking for you. The colonel who conveyed the news looked at Liu Feng and looked at him with resentment in his eyes, as if he was watching the killing of his father and enemy. His cold eyes made him shiver. The colonel rubbed the soles of his feet with oil, and disappeared in front of Liu Feng's eyes in an instant. Forget it, let me let you go this time. Liu Feng directly tore the sign into pieces, threw it on the ground, and brought Petunia to Zhang Guo's office. Liu Feng sat down on the sofa with a carefree face, and asked Zhang Guo, "What do you want from me?" With a relaxed and fearless look, Zhang Guo glanced at him and frowned. He is a marshal, so he didn't know how to show respect. I heard that Petunia doesn't want to evacuate Marlin Vander with the family members of the Navy. At that time, this place will become a battlefield, and her safety cannot be guaranteed at all, Zhang Guo said to Liu Feng, but his eyes were on Petunia. After a few days, Zhang Guo fell in love with this smart and clever little girl. He, who had no children in his life, even wanted to accept Petunia as his adopted daughter. I can't help it. Penny doesn't want to leave. She insists on staying with me. I won't be able to hold her back. Let her stay at the back when the time comes. There shouldn't be any problem, Liu Feng said helplessly. Zhang Qiuomin glanced at the idle Liu Feng, then looked at Penny who was sitting next to Liu Feng, and said with a kind smile. Penny, can you evacuate with the family members on the island? You will come back after the war is over. No. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Petunia turned her head away and said with a pout. Liu Feng spread his hands to Zhang Guo, expressing helplessness. Warring States sighed, and then told Petunia, "Okay, but you must stay at the end when the time comes, and don't get close to the battlefield." "Okay, Grandpa Warring States, I will definitely." Zhang Guo was silent for a while, then looked at Liu Feng with a serious face and said, "Get ready, follow the plan." "Okay, I get it." Liu Feng waved goodbye to Zhang Guo, and took Petunia back to the residence. The battle was imminent, and he also became nervous, so excited, such a big scene is rare in life. There are still 3 hours until the execution time. 100,000 naval elites from all over the world, as well as Shishibukai and the 3 generals all gathered on the square. The closer the execution was, the more intense the tension pervading Marin Fando. On the execution platform, as Ace was escorted up, Warring States also came up, and the phone bug began to reveal Ace's true identity to the world. Liu Feng was standing next to Warring States, and once again heard this speech that triggered the largest war in the era of great pirates. He doesn't feel anything, he knows more inside information, did he say it? His mouth is very strict, of course, this kind of thing can't be said nonsense. However, people around the world who watched the broadcast were shocked. The blood of One Piece is still alive. Immediately, around Ace, the son of Roger, the most grand and magnificent war since the era of great pirates kicked off. Everything was as Liu Feng remembered, the ship of the Whitebeard pirates, the Moby Dick appeared from the bottom of the sea in the inner bay, shocking a lot of people. Of course, not including him. In the opening scene, Whitebeard's ability to use the shaking fruit attracted a tsunami, flooding Marin Vander, directly declaring the beginning of the war. Whitebeard's hand feels like a cock no matter how many times he looks at it. Zhen fruit is really strong. Liu Feng stood on the execution platform expressionless, and his heart was already excited. As the overwhelming tsunami approached, a cry of Ice Age sounded over Marin Vanduo. King Z made a move, and directly saw Liu Feng's blood boiling with Ice Age. This is the strength of the general. The meter-height tsunami was directly frozen. The shocking effect is no less than the tsunami caused by the Whitebeard, it is natural, forever God. Liu Feng suddenly froze with emotion. He remembered that in the original book, Luffy and the others would fall from the glacier, but he remembered that it was Lafitte who hypnotized the sailors in the power room when the door of justice opened, which happened to be convenient for Luffy and his gang. Now that Lafitte is belching along with Blackbeard, can Luffy and the others still come? Looking at the ice waterfall in the sky, Liu Feng fell into deep thought. Luffy isn't here, the protagonist isn't there, so Ace, is there any help? After the blue pheasant in the sky tried Whitebeard, it was knocked down on the sea surface, and immediately froze the entire inner bay, as well as the Moby Dick in the inner bay, blocking the progress of the ships behind. Subsequently, the war between the two sides officially began. In the blazing harbor, the sounds of cannons, gunshots, and fighting mingled together, which is enough to prove that the war has entered a fever pitch from the very beginning. Standing on a high place, Liu Feng saw a soaring green sword energy flying towards the Whitebeard standing in the middle of the harbor. I couldn't help but spit out a few words, tisk tisk, I'm still ruthless with eagle eyes. A random flat A is Sauron's big move, but I still stand for Sauron. After all, being handsome is a matter of a lifetime. If the output is not enough, the moves come together, and it's over gone. Zhang Guo glanced at Liu Feng, and there was a hint of warning in his eyes, which meant that he should not say a few words. Kneeling on the execution platform and listening to Liu Feng's voice next to him, Ace couldn't help being a little surprised, thinking, what's the matter with the guy next to him? He's talking nonsense, and he can still stand behind Zhang Guo, but he's just a familiar face. Out of curiosity, Ace glanced to the side to see what kind of person he was. Liu Feng felt that someone was staring at him, so he looked in the direction he felt, and met Ace's gaze. Ace saw Liu Feng grinning at him with his front teeth bared, and was taken aback. He didn't expect a navy to smile at him. At this moment, everyone in the world wished for his sinful blood to die, but the man beside him, who was still a navy, smiled at him. Why are you? Ace wanted to ask why Liu Feng was smiling at him, but was interrupted by a huge block of ice flying from the harbor. He didn't see what happened on the battlefield just now, so now he can only look at the ice flying above his head in astonishment. If it falls, the execution platform will definitely collapse. Was stoned to death. Don't worry, I won't die. At the same time as the sound sounded, Akainu stood up from the seat, launched a fire-breathing move, and melted all the ice. The fists formed by the magma later turned into meteor fists and fell into the harbor, melting. The ice in the bay was wiped out, creating an apocalyptic scene. I'm right. Hearing the sound, Ace turned his head to look at the man next to him again, and the doubts in his heart became more and more intense. Who is this man? Chapter 9. Seeing that the two sides are stalemate on the battlefield, it is difficult to achieve any substantial results in a short time. With some itchy hands, Liu Feng suggested to Zhang Guo, can I go down and play for a while? Zhang Guo turned sideways and stared at him with frowns. It seemed that Liu Feng knew that there must be nothing to do, so he didn't even think about it. Ace, who do you think will win? Liu Feng was a little bored. Warring states wanted to observe the battle situation, and Garp was still wiping his nose underneath, so he could only talk to Ace. Tell me, you can see that the Marshal of the Warring States period didn't respond. Suddenly, there was a boom, boom, boom. What the hell? Liu Feng wondered why it was so loud, followed the voice, and a huge, ridiculous giant appeared in front of his eyes, it's little Ozzy. But, it's really big. He has always been several times bigger than a giant and has no conception. After witnessing it with his own eyes this time, he finally has a conception of what is big. With a height of 70 meters, almost as high as a 20-story building, ordinary humans can only be said to be insignificant under his feet. That's an exaggeration. After Liu Feng sighed for a while, he heard Zhang Guo say, Whitebeard, you really brought a remarkable person. Liu Feng didn't expect that warring states would complain. Unsurprisingly, Ozzy fell on the surrounding wall within a few steps. It's too bulky and useless. It has no advantages except that it's too big. It's a typical charging treasure. It's a gift for someone's head. Seeing the fallen ounce, Lu Feng complained a bit, but Ace glared at him for a while. Lu Feng looked at the snot and tears on Ace's face, and closed his mouth. If he didn't look at him, he would be so pitiful, he had to let Ace see his poisonous tongue skills. He turned his head to look at the battlefield. Lu Feng squinted his eyes on the battlefield and saw a captain at the captain level, who was being manipulated by Doflamingo. He swung his knife wildly at the people around him, and cut down many of his own people. Lu Feng pointed to that place and asked Ace, "What's the captain's name?" Ace looked in the direction Lu Feng pointed and read out the name of the manipulated Captain Atmos. "Oh, it's called Atmos, it's really delicious. Anyway, he is a captain, but he can be played by Doflamingo, whether it is a dish or something." Ace bit his lips and looked at his comrades who were constantly falling on the battlefield, crying bitterly. Lu Feng was really speechless looking at him like this. If he knew this, why did he not catch Blackbeard by himself? Some people are cheap, you have to lose it to know how to cherish it, alas. Suddenly, Lu Feng saw a dozen small black spots outside the port approaching quickly towards Marin Fanduo, and asked Zhangguo, "Marshal, what are those? Are you leaving behind?" Hearing this, warring states looked intently, and more than a dozen whales with people on their backs were quickly heading towards Marin Fando. Ace! A cry that resounded through the sky came from the back of the whale outside the harbor. Ace responded excitedly when he heard the voice, "Luffy!" Lu Feng was startled, and secretly complained in his heart, "This can all happen, as expected of the protagonist, the strength of the plot is really amazing. This can all be reversed." Lu Feng was paralyzed. Didn't it mean that as long as the door of justice is not opened, nothing can pass through? How the hell did they get out? It's just that no one will answer Lu Feng's question, because no one knows what happened except Lu Fei and his group. Except for a few people who paid attention to the uninvited guests from Imperton, their arrival did not cause much disturbance, and the battlefield in the inner bay gradually reached its climax. That's the Maelstrom Spider Squad. It seems that Akainu has successfully instigated him. Lu Feng knew what was going to happen when he saw Shaquata appearing behind Whitebeard, and was stabbed by his most trusted son. Whitebeard didn't blame Shaquata, but still loved him deeply. What the bearded father did is really qualified. Lu Feng watched all this silently, without making a sound. The gears of history had turned, and no one could stop it. Time passed by little, and the battle situation was deadlocked. Seeing that it was almost done, Sengoku took out his phone bug and ordered, "Start executing the plan." After receiving the order, the navy began to retreat into the square in an orderly manner. Lu Feng knew that the plan to encircle the wall was about to start, and the war was about to end, and he hadn't found a suitable time yet. Lu Feng became anxious, and began to look for the figure of Red Dog on the battlefield. Looking across the battlefield, he found that Red Dog and Aokiji were standing in the center of the square, waiting for the surrounding wall to form. Lu Feng couldn't remember the next plot very clearly. Anyway, he knew that the battle was halfway through, and if he didn't want to drag Akainu down, Ace would die. Luffy! Ace's roar came from Lu Feng's ear, interrupting his thoughts. Lu Feng looked towards the square, and saw that Lu Fei was running desperately towards the execution platform. Being chopped by Hawkeye, kicked by Huang Yuan, and beaten by the Lieutenant General, it was a tragedy. Lu Feng was curious, if his grandson was beaten up like this, could Garp bear it? "Old man, your grandson is about to be beaten to death? Are you still not making a move?" Lu Feng's words attracted Zhangguo's sideways attention, and Lu Feng continued to say sarcastically, "If it were me, it doesn't matter if this Lieutenant General is wrong, anyway, I will definitely save my relatives." Zhangguo's gaze shifted from Lu Feng to Garp. He wanted to know what kind of response Garp would make. Although he had been with him for so long, he knew what kind of person Garp was. What a move that crossed the line! Garp lowered his head and lowered his eyes, and said in a low voice, "This is the path they chose. I am a navy, he is a pirate, and now it is a war. We stand on our own positions. There is no family relationship, only hostility." Hearing this, Sengoku no longer looked at Garp, but turned to observe the situation on the battlefield. Liu Feng turned his back and stopped talking. "No. Don't attack the pirate ship, attack ounce." Following Zhang Guo's words, Liu Feng finally waited until the climax of the war, and he didn't need to apply for it later. Probably Zhang Guo would take the initiative to let him go down to resist the Whitebeard gang. Finally, it was time for him to show up. After thinking about it, Liu Feng was not in a hurry anymore. It was almost the end. If you can save it, you can save it. If you can't save it, forget it. Soon, the Whitebeard gang was sent into the square by Ozzy. Subsequently, the two sides continued to fight in the square. Watching the three generals taking turns to battle, they played wheel battles with Whitebeard, and fought back and forth. Liu Feng lamented that Whitebeard deserves to be recognized as the strongest man in the world. However, today, Whitebeard will definitely die here. It is estimated that this old man has already made plans in his heart. Liu Feng, go down and help Sakazuki and the others. Seeing the increasingly chaotic situation under his feet, Zhang Guo finally decided that it would be better for him to guard here himself, so he asked Liu Feng to go down to help. Liu Feng was ecstatic when he heard this order from the side, and finally got the chance to play. After answering yes, he jumped up and jumped into the square. This trick, shout out, the magic soldier descends from heaven. As soon as Liu Feng entered the battlefield, he saw the red dog fighting against the Whitebeard, and immediately shouted, "General Akainu! I'll help you!" This roar distracted Akainu's attention, and Whitebeard punched his head on an oversight, and Akainu's head was buzzing instantly. A wave of anger surged into Akainu's heart. On the one hand, there was a reason for the injury, and on the other hand, who was not good looking to disrupt the situation. Liu Feng didn't know what Chiquan was thinking, and rushed forward with a frenzied expression. Chapter 10. Chiquan stood up from the ruins and glared at Liu Feng, who was running from far away, gritted his teeth and said two words, "Liu Feng." You can see how angry he is from the ferocious expression on Akainu's face. However, Liu Feng would not apologize. "General Akainu, what's wrong?" Liu Feng ran up to Chiquan and made a caring look, which made Chiquan not easy to get angry, so he could only say "I'm fine" angrily, and looked up to Whitebeard again. "I'll give you a helping hand." Liu Feng stood beside Chiquan and stared at Whitebeard and said. Akazuki gave Liu Feng a sideways look and didn't say much. Whitebeard looked at Liu Feng with interest. "Boy, you are a genius of the younger generation of the Navy, I wonder if you will be sad to die here, haha." "Stop joking, old man, I don't want to die yet," Liu Feng said with a pouted mouth. Looking at Chiquan's attitude towards Liu Feng, Whitebeard thought that Liu Feng was a genius of the younger generation of the Navy, but seeing how the way he spoke was exactly the same as that of Huang Yuan, he asked another question out of curiosity. "Are you the grandson of the Yellow Ape?" "You are the grandson of the Yellow Ape, and your whole family is the grandson of the Yellow Ape. Aren't you really the grandson of the Yellow Ape?" "I'm the tender daddy. I'm so fucking bang bang and beat you to death with 2 punches." Liu Feng was really very angry, saying that he is the grandson of Huang Yuan. Isn't this an insult to him? It's outrageous. He even suspects that Whitebeard is highly myopic. How can Huang Yuan have such a handsome grandson with his old face? "Stop talking nonsense. Ghost dog." Akainu couldn't bear to hear the two of them arguing here, and directly attacked Whitebeard. "I'm coming too. Old man. Give me a punch." With his left hand, Whitebeard activated the shaking fruit ability to block Chigu's Mingu, and with his right hand, he held a juvenile knife to block Liu Feng's fist. The ghost dog and the shock collided together, emitting a dazzling light, and the red and white intertwined was called a gorgeous one. On the other hand, a fist on the other side hit the juvenile knife without even making a sound. It can be said that half of the special effects are full, and half of it is mediocre. To say that it is mediocre is an exaggeration, and it should be negligible. I didn't expect the quality of this knife to be so good that it could block my normal punch. Liu Feng couldn't help admiring the immature knife in Baybeard's hand, and then his eyes were a little sore from the dazzling light around him. Through the light curtain, he could clearly see the struggling look on the old face of Akainu next to him, and he seemed a little powerless. Then, Whitebeard broke out again, and directly bounced away Chiquan and Liu Feng. Chiquan slid back a few steps to stabilize his figure, and immediately rushed forward again, attacking Whitebeard. Liu Feng also followed closely behind, shouting ordinary punch, and punched Whitebeard. But there seemed to be some accident during the process. Chiquan and Whitebeard collided together, and were sent flying back in an instant, bumping into Liu Feng's fist without any warning. Liu Feng was stunned. You bumped into it yourself, it's none of my business. Liu Feng's punch directly opened a hole in Chiquan's stomach. He didn't die on the spot, and he was already considered to have tenacious vitality. In an instant, the battles on the field stopped one after another. Looking at this astonishing scene, they were stunned. The entire battlefield was instantly silent. General Red Dog. Liu Feng was also stunned, not knowing what to do. Standing on the high platform, Zhang Guo was also stunned for 2 seconds. This sudden change really caught him off guard. Chiquan looked at his wound, then at Liu Feng, and there were really 10,000 grass mud horses floating in his heart. Being accidentally injured like this by one of his own people is beyond words. Whitebeard looked at the seriously injured Chigu and Liu Feng in front of him, and when he came back to his senses, he hit the two of them with a concussion blow. How could he miss such an opportunity to kill the general? Every admiral of the navy will affect the direction of the battle. If Akainu is killed here, it will undoubtedly be excellent news for them. Go to hell, kid! Whitebeard roared angrily, and aimed at Liu Feng and Chiquan with a childish knife, making 2 consecutive slashes. Liu Feng hugged the red dog and hurriedly avoided Whitebeard's attack, then punched Whitebeard from the air, put the red dog in a safe place, returned to Whitebeard and said, "Old man, I have to be serious, I will accept your head." Although Akainu's serious injury was an accident, the main responsibility lies with Whitebeard. Without hammering Whitebeard to death here, he really couldn't explain it to the Warring States period and the Navy. Hula la brat, try it out if you have the ability. Whitebeard smiled at Liu Feng with his aura of being the strongest man in the world. Then give me a serious punch. Liu Feng, who got serious, flashed in front of Baybeard in an instant, and punched him in the chest. Even though Whitebeard's body is full of injuries and his strength is not as good as before, he is the existence of the ceiling of combat power in this world after all. Facing Liu Feng's punch, although it was a bit difficult to block it, it was blocked anyway. As Liu Feng and Whitebeard fought together again, the battle on the square was rekindled. The sound of killing soaring into the sky floated over Marin Fando. Warring States glanced at Liu Feng, who was fighting Whitebeard, and then turned his gaze to Akainu behind. There, the dying red dog was being rescued by the Navy's medical staff, and the yellow monkey stood in front of him, guarding the pirates from approaching. Zhang Guo sighed silently in his heart, then turned his eyes back and continued to observe the situation on the battlefield. No one thought of such a thing happening, it can only be regarded as an accident. Thinking this way in his heart, Zhang Guo put most of his attention on Liu Feng, who was fighting fiercely with Whitebeard. If it weren't for seeing him fighting Whitebeard so hard, the Warring States would have suspected that he was an undercover agent for the pirates, and they were going to end the battle in person, and get to know him first before fighting against Whitebeard. Whitebeard, you really are still young. Lu Feng and Whitebeard said after fighting each other. He didn't expect this old man to be so powerful even after he was about to die. Is this the Whitebeard? It's really scary. Lu Feng looked around at the navy around him. If he was not afraid of hurting them, he would have already shot with all his strength. Lu Feng frowned, secretly said trouble, and then punched Whitebeard again. Although he couldn't strike with all his strength, this punch was already within his control and the most powerful punch. Old man, you fall down for me. If you want me to fall, you are still a little bit close, brat. The fists of the two collided again, and a terrifying air wave spread from around the two, blowing away the crowd in the surrounding area. After all, Whitebeard was getting old, but he still lost the wind with this punch, causing him to stagger back 2 steps. Flame Ring Pillar of Fire. After Lu Feng punched the Whitebeard back, he heard a shout from behind, and his attention was immediately attracted. Have you been rescued? Ace. After Lu Feng glanced at it, he then turned his gaze back to examine the weak Whitebeard in front of him. This man is really strong. The only thing that can defeat him is the pain and time. Father was actually beaten back, that man. Everyone in the Whitebeard pirates looked at the slightly thin navy in the square, and couldn't imagine what kind of devil existed in this man's body, so powerful, can beat back the invincible father in their hearts. Old man, is my punch uncomfortable? Ha ha ha, I haven't seen such a powerful kid for a long time. It seems that you can't be allowed to continue to grow, or the boys in the sea will have no way out in the future. Want to kill me? Come and try. Lu Feng chuckled, what time is this? Whitebeard still wants to pave the way for his sons and kill him. It's impossible, okay? Do you think he is the former Whitebeard? This is simply a fool's joke. Whitebeard is already at the end of his strength, he is just holding on to his breath, he has gone all out, and Lu Feng has not yet shown his real skills. Chapter 11. Little Ones. Retreat. Whitebeard moved his eyes to the rescued Ace and began to give orders. The members of the Whitebeard pirates became more and more excited when they heard Whitebeard's order, and rushed to say, "Take Dad with you, I'll stop them. You go first, I will break later. Father, let's go together." Whitebeard glanced at his sons and laughed loudly. "This is the captain's order, you all must survive and return to the new world safely. I am a remnant of the old era, and there is no boat that can carry me in the new era." Dad. Lu Feng looked at the people in the Whitebeard pirates who were crying, and said in a cold tone. "Whitebeard, are you ready to die? Let me give you a ride." Hearing this, Whitebeard turned his head to look at the thin Lu Feng in front of him, and the ability to shake the fruit with the immature knife was focused on the tip of the knife. Lu Feng saw the contemptuous aura in Baybeard's eyes, and knew that he was going to do his best, so he took it very seriously. Whitebeard's full blow was not a joke. Little devil! A sure blow. There was a deafening cracking sound from the collision, and the space between the two began to shatter inch by inch, as if the world was collapsing and the end was coming. At the same time, the clown Bucky, who was holding a video phone bug on the surrounding wall, was so scared that his nose dripped out. All the people in the world who were watching this battle looked at the two men in the center of the storm in astonishment. Is this something human can do? The other side. Without the blocking of the red dog, the green pheasant and the yellow monkey could not stop Ace and others from retreating at all. Ace looked back at the generous back of the Whitebeard, with a complicated heart. "Dad. Ace, let's go, don't disappoint Daddy." "I see. When the storm clears, everything returns to calm." Cough cough. Whitebeard half knelt on the ground and coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood, and asked Lu Feng. "Little devil, what's your name?" "Lu Feng." "Haha, I remember you. Do you have any last words to say?" Whitebeard was panting heavily, it seemed that the weather was approaching. "Last words. One Piece is real, Ha 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 ha. Whitebeard's voice echoed above Marin Vander and reached the sky, making the pirates of this era go crazy again. The whole world is excited about it, of course, not including the navy. Under the frog mirror of the Warring States period, a pair of eyes staring at the Whitebeard almost jumped out. The angry expression on his face was slightly ferocious, and his big white teeth were almost crushed. Newgate. The Warring States period was almost so angry that it spiraled directly into the sky. This wave of the navy can be said to have lost its underwear. Not only did Ace not die, but he was rescued and fled. The words of Whitebeard before his death made this battle even more effortless. All in vain. I thought that by executing Ace and besieging Whitebeard, he would revive the navy's reputation in this sea and weaken the number of pirates. Now, because of Whitebeard's words, his success fell short. Did you finally say this sentence? Liu Feng stood in front of Whitebeard, and Whitebeard whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Little ghost, if you were born in my time, I really want to have a good fight with you. It's a pity. After finishing speaking, Baybeard showed a pale smile and looked at Liu Feng with admiration in his eyes. After a few breaths, the former overlord of the sea, the famous hero Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, finally died in the square of Marin Vanduo. Daddy! Groups of shouts came from the direction of the harbour. Stop them for me! Never let these pirates escape back to the New World. When the pirates fell into grief and wept uncontrollably, the navy stood in the square silently looking at Whitebeard's body. Only Sengoku remained awake. I can't let you just leave like this. Huang Yuan is really the most loyal subordinate in the Warring States period, and he is meticulous in carrying out orders anyway. As for the extent of his contribution, it is difficult to describe in words. 8-foot Kyangu Jade. As soon as Huang Yuan called out the name of the move, a sentence "don't move" came from the surrounding wall, interrupting his next moves. Coming. Liu Feng looked at the group of people who logged in from the harbour, and recognized the red-haired group, one of the four emperors. Unexpectedly, Shanks and his group came early without the interruption of the black beard. Could it be Kai? How early did it wither? Red hair. Fortunately, the body of the Warring States is quite strong, otherwise, the brain would be congested by anger. From the beginning of this war, there have been frequent accidents. The whole battle situation did not proceed according to the plan envisioned by the Warring States. The Warring States can still command the navy. It is not easy to make adjustments. What are you doing here? Redhead. I'm here to end this war. Shanks drew his saber and pointed it at the navy. If the fight continues like this, it will only increase the casualties of the two parties without limit. If there are still people who have not fought enough, we will accompany them to the end. This style is really exciting. Sitting in front of Whitebeard, Liu Feng watched this scene and gave a heartfelt evaluation. As for why he sits, his motto in life is that if he can sit, he will never stand, and if he can lie down, he will never sit. If it wasn't because the ground was too dirty, he would lie down and watch the fun. The war is basically over here, there is nothing else to do, of course we have to rest. The new red-haired group saw Liu Feng acting strangely at a glance. Although they were curious about what was going on with the navy, it was not the time to explore this issue yet. Seeing that the navy was not willing to do anything, Shanks stared at Sengoku and said, "Can you sell me some face? We will hold Whitebeard's funeral." The video of the war has been spread all over the world. Your goal has been achieved. Come on, face fruit is activated. It has always been a mystery how much face Shanks has in One Piece, and he can still see the 5 old stars. I don't know if it's because of face or some other identity. Anyway, he is the most unfathomable among the 4 emperors. Hey! What are you arguing for yourself? Only by displaying the head of Whitebeard can we declare the victory of our navy. What the Lieutenant General said. Do you want to discredit our victory? Don't accept the pirates' instructions. It's okay. Marshal. Zhang Guo locked eyes and said, I can leave it to you, red hair. Marshal. All responsibility rests with me. Thanks. Shanks looked at Sengoku and said. Heal the wounded quickly. The war is over. As the voice of the warring states period floated over Marin Fando, the biggest war since the era of great pirates came to an end. After one day, the crude marshal's office, a colonel reported to Sengoku. Report, Marshal, Admiral Akainu. He was not rescued. Hearing this, Zhang Guo closed his eyes silently, and the colonel turned and left immediately. Lu Feng. Zhang Guo felt a headache for this name, how to deal with him. Chapter 12. In 2 weeks, the rebuilding of Marin Vando is in full swing. Lu Feng was sitting in Huang Yuan's leaky office drinking tea, and he felt that everything was fine, but he always had the feeling of being peeped at, which always felt weird. General Huang Yuan, do you have any special requirements for windows? Outside the window, several construction workers are hanging on the exterior wall and repairing the building. Just follow the original. Okay. Lu Feng just said, no wonder there is always a feeling of being watched. Old man, I'm going back first, I feel awkward being looked at here. Lu Feng put down his teacup, said hello, and quickly left here. He couldn't bear to stay for another second. He really couldn't understand how Huang Yuan managed to sit peacefully while being stared at by so many eyes. Drink tea there. Holy Land Mary Joa. Warring States is standing in front of 5 men who are at the apex of power in this world. Lu Feng, so far, we haven't found any clues about this person. It's as if this person appeared out of thin air. It does not rule out that he is from the future or the past. Still have this ability. Zhang Guo frowned. How can he say that he has been in this sea for so long, not to mention ignorant, he is also well informed, but this is the first time he has heard of this ability. The 5 old stars have said this, so it must be there, and he no longer doubts it. Since it was an accident, this Lu Feng has no malice towards the navy, and his strength is not bad. You can consider giving him the position of Lieutenant General. However, it remains to be investigated. Yes, I understand. Warring States replied. Also, do you have a good recommendation for the general position vacated after Akainu's death? Not yet. In fact, Zhang Guo has always wanted to send Lu Feng to Jinjin City and imprison him. There are too many suspicious points about this person. Looking at the 5 old stars in front of him, Zhang Guo still hid this matter in the bottom of his heart. It may be that the absolute justice he insisted in his heart has gradually changed, and he doesn't even know it. At this time, the navy can no longer stand the toss. It would be too unwise to fight someone with a strength comparable to that of Whitebeard. Judging from the present, Lu Feng's heart is still for the navy, let it take its course. Carp, Marshal Kong agrees. Well, where are you? Fortunately, Wu Liaoxing wants to grant Lu Feng the position of Lieutenant General in the headquarters. Ha ha ha, that kid, I'm too lazy to die, I think I won't accept it. I have a way to get him to agree. 2 elderly people, walking side by side on the streets of Marie Joya, their backs look a little lonely against the deserted streets. What? Lieutenant General. Don't do it, I don't do it. I don't want to go to work. When Lu Feng heard that Zhang Guo wanted him to be a general, he jumped up in the office and yelled loudly, which attracted the attention of people outside the room. Let's see who has a sick brain, the Lieutenant General is not willing to do it. Lu Feng stared wide-eyed at Zhang Guo and refused to give an inch, thinking, you still want me to work? It is impossible to work part-time. It is impossible to work part-time in this life. Wouldn't it be nice to retire him in the navy? This is an order from Wu Laoxing, you cannot refuse it. Then why don't I listen? That will only clear you out of the navy. You are vicious. The Warring States period really controlled Lu Feng to death, and with one sentence, he strangled Liu Feng's life. What Liu Feng is most afraid of now is that the carefree life is far away from him now. Pirate, it is impossible for him to be a pirate in this life. The Revolutionary Army is having a hard time now, so he should wait for the organization to become stronger before joining the organization. After screening, the high-quality conditions of the Navy are the most suitable for him. Zhang Guo glanced at Liu Feng and said, "In 3 days, the awarding ceremony will take place." Understood. Before Liu Feng came, he felt his left eyelid twitch, but he didn't take it seriously at all. He is an atheist and only believes in science. As a result, he couldn't believe it. On the way back to the residence, the Navy people they met along the way greeted Liu Feng one after another. Liu Feng is now a celebrity in the Navy? No, he can even be considered a celebrity in the whole world. He is a man with a strong white beard, and the whole world has seen this. Secretly, everyone thought that Liu Feng could now be on an equal footing with the general. However, Liu Feng was not in the mood to talk to them. At this moment he was very irritable. If I had known it earlier, I would have been fishing and paddling and not showing up at all. Now I have become a lieutenant general. After that, I have to go out to catch pirates every day? Going out on missions? Then how can I have time to sleep? Back at the residence, Liu Feng found that Penny was packing the package. Petunia? What are you packing up for? Didn't Grandpa Huang Yuan tell you? What? Nope. Tomorrow I'm going to report to the boot camp. So fast? It's not fast, the battle on the top has passed for 2 weeks. It was supposed to be reported a week ago, but because of the impact of the follow-up events of the war, it was delayed for another week. Penny was a little speechless. This cheap brother, apart from being stronger, is really useless. If this strength is gone, she really doesn't doubt that Liu Feng can be of any use, and life is definitely a problem. Did the yellow ape take you away? Oh, let me clean it up for you. Are you in such a hurry for me to leave? Hey? What do you mean? I just see that you are too slow to clean up. Then pack it up. Petunia left the room angrily without saying a word. Liu Feng was still at a loss as to why he had made Petunia angry. 3 days later, on the riddled square of the headquarters, a promotion ceremony was held to reward the navies who performed outstandingly in this war. After this, Liu Feng was promoted to Lieutenant General of the Navy headquarters, and even gave him the codename Broken Fist. Liu Feng didn't know whether he wanted to train him as a replacement general, or if there were other reasons. Anyway, as soon as the ceremony is over, he will cat back to his den, and close the door without seeing anyone. He just wants to stay in the headquarters, and no one wants him to go to sea to catch pirates. Anyway, how long can it last? With this thought in mind, Liu Feng fell asleep directly. Liu Fengzhu, Marshal of the Warring States period, asked you to report to the G7 base. Liu Feng also had a dream in his dream, dreaming that Huang Yuan brought the order from the Warring States period, asking him to report to the G7 base. Speaking of what kind of ghost base is G7, I have never heard of it. Get up, Liu Feng. I won't get up and kick you again. Why is there still the voice of the yellow ape, this dream? Liu Feng opened his eyes in a daze, and saw a dazzling flash of light on the bedside, shooting towards him. Fuck! Liu Feng dodged the flash like a carp, leaned against the wall,